My husband is dead and I am rotting in this nursing home because I refuse to pay my son-in-law a fortune for children who are not even my blood. The title of my nightmare is Son-in-Law Demands Money for His Stepkids. I refused, and the ending is bitter. But the reality is far more twisted than a simple family dispute over finances. I watched Mark, a man I invited to Sunday dinners for years, steal $500,000 from my grandson and then stand idly by while my husband took his last breath. All because we would not fund his lavish lifestyle. I thought I was the powerful matriarch protecting my legacy, but I was actually a pawn in a game of psychological torture that cost me everything. Now, my bank accounts are full, but my heart is completely empty. Mark is in prison. My grandson is traumatized for life, and I am left here clutching a cold cup of tea, wondering if being right was worth being this alone. Can you really buy loyalty in this world? Or does money just reveal who the true monsters are hiding in your living room? I need you to listen to this and tell me honestly. Everyone, did I destroy my family? Or was I the only one trying to save it? My name is Autumn. I am 65 years old, though the mirror in this sterilized bathroom insists I look 80. Before I ended up here, I was a respected philanthropist, a board member for 3 different charity organizations in Greenwich, Connecticut, and the matriarch of a family that looked pristine on holiday cards. Now, my profession is waiting. I wait for the nurses to bring my medication. I wait for the sun to set over the manicured gardens of the Oaks Senior Living community. And mostly, I wait for the guilt to finally stop eating me alive. The Oaks is what they call a 5-star facility. It costs $12,000 a month to live here. The walls are painted a soothing cream color. The floors are polished marble, and the staff wear smiles that look like they were surgically attached. It is a golden cage for people whose families have decided they are too much of a burden to keep at home, but too wealthy to abandon completely. I am sitting in my wheelchair by the window, watching the first snow of the season coat the parking lot. My hands are gnarled with arthritis, resting on a velvet blanket. It is funny how clarity only comes when you have lost the ability to change anything. If I could go back 2 years, I would have done everything differently, but I cannot. All I can do is tell you how a grandmother's love, twisted by arrogance and money, destroyed the very people she tried to save. It started with a signature 2 years ago. The world was different. My husband, Robert, was still alive. We lived in our colonial estate on 2 acres of land, surrounded by tall hedges that blocked out the rest of the world. I remember the day I drove to our family attorney's office in downtown Stamford. The leather seats of my Mercedes were cool against my back, but my palms were sweating. I was there to create a secret. Are you sure about this? Autumn, my lawyer, Mr. Henderson, asked me. He peered over his reading glasses, his pen hovering over the documents. A trust fund of this magnitude, kept secret from the parents? It is unusual. It is necessary, I replied, my voice sharper than I intended. I adjusted the pearl necklace at my throat, a nervous habit I have had since I was a girl. $500,000 to be released to my grandson, Tyler, on his 18th birthday, not a day sooner, and absolutely no access for his father. And Mark does not know about this? Henderson asked. If Mark knew there was $500,000 sitting in an account, he would find a way to drain it before the ink dried. I said, Tyler is 16. He is impressionable. He needs a safety net that his father cannot touch. This is for his future. College, a down payment on a house. freedom, inner monologue. That was the lie I told myself. I told myself I was protecting Tyler, but deep down, I knew what I was really doing. I was trying to buy control. I hated my son-in-law. I hated how he looked at our furniture like he was appraising it for an auction. I wanted to prove that I was the one who held the power, that my money could outlast his manipulation. I thought I was being a guardian angel. I did not realize I was planting a landmine. I signed the papers. The scratch of the pen sounded loud in the quiet office. $500,000. A secret weapon. 2 weeks later, we hosted a dinner party. It was supposed to be a celebration of Robert's retirement, but with my family. Every meal felt like a negotiation. The dining room was dimly lit by the crystal chandelier, casting long shadows across the mahogany table. I had hired a caterer because I did not want to spend the day cooking, only to have Jessica criticize the seasoning. Jessica was Mark's new wife. They had married only 8 months after my daughter passed away. She was young, perhaps 30, with hair that was too blonde and a laugh that was too loud. She sat next to Mark, her hand constantly resting on his forearm as if she were afraid he might float away. Then there was Mark, my former son-in-law. At 45, he still maintained the handsome, rugged looks that had charmed my poor daughter years ago. He wore a suit that was slightly too expensive for a man who claimed his consulting business was in a transition phase. He sat at the table with an air of entitlement, swirling his red wine and looking around the room with a predator's gaze. And Tyler, my sweet, confused 16-year-old grandson, he sat at the end of the table, slumped in his chair, wearing a hoodie that cost more than my first car. He was tapping away on his phone under the table. "Put the phone away, Tyler," Mark said. His voice was smooth, calm, the voice of a reasonable parent. "Respect your grandparents." Tyler rolled his eyes but slid the phone into his pocket. "Sorry, Grandma. Sorry, Grandpa. It is fine, sweetie," I said, forcing a smile. I looked at Mark. Let the boy breathe. "Mark, it is a Friday night." Mark smiled at me, a tight stretching of lips that did not reach his eyes. "Discipline is love. Autumn, we have to teach them values. Money does not grow on trees, right?" He laughed, and Jessica joined in, a high-pitched titter that grated on my nerves. Inner monologue. Look at him, preaching about values while wearing a watch I know Robert paid for 3 Christmases ago. He talks about discipline, but I can smell the desperation on him. He is sniffing around for money. I can feel it. "Speaking of values," Mark said, leaning forward. He swirled his wine again. The red liquid coated the glass like blood. "Jessica and I were talking the other day about this house. It is Hao Ling. 2 hash is greater than massive. Is it not? Just for the 2 of you?" Robert looked up from his steak. He was a gentleman, conflict-averse to a fault. "We like the space, Mark. It is full of memories." Of course. Mark nodded sympathetically. "But memories do not pay the property taxes, do they? And the maintenance? The landscaping? It must be a fortune." We were just thinking, Hao Ling, 2 hash is greater than purely for your sake. Of course, Hao Ling, 2 hash is greater than have you considered downsizing? Maybe moving assets into something more. Hao Ling, dos numeral es mayor que liquid? The room went silent. The only sound was the clinking of Jessica's fork against the china. This was it, the red flag. It was not a flag. It was a flare gun going off in my face. He was not worried about our taxes. He was worried about his inheritance. He wanted us to sell the house so the money would be accessible. Real estate is hard to steal. Cash is easy. I placed my knife and fork down slowly, deliberately. I wiped the corners of my mouth with the linen napkin and looked Mark dead in the eye. We are quite comfortable. Mark, I said, my voice icy. Our financial advisor has everything under control. You do not need to worry your pretty little head about our property taxes. Jessica stiffened. Mark's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, his jaw tightening, before the mask slipped back into place. I am just looking out for the family. Autumn, Mark said, raising his hands in a gesture of surrender. With the economy the way it is, Saoyutsing Haoling, 2 hash is greater than you know. We just want to make sure everyone is taken care of, especially the kids. You know how expensive it is raising a family these days. Jessica's 2 little ones, Saoyutsing Haoling, 2 hash is greater than they have needs to. There it was, the entitlement. He was already positioning Jessica's children I had no blood relation to, as my financial responsibility. We help where we can, Robert said softly, trying to diffuse the tension, and we appreciate it. Jessica chimed in, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. We really do. It is just, Saoyutsing Haoling, 2 hash is greater than, sometimes it feels like Tyler gets so much. And the little ones, Saoyutsing Haoling, 2 hash is greater than well. They notice. They ask why Tyler gets a new car, and they do not. Tyler is our grandson. I said, he is my daughter's son, and I am his father. Mark said, his voice dropping an octave. The warmth was gone. And Jessica is my wife. We are one family. Autumn, one unit. You cannot favor one part of the unit without hurting the whole. That is how resentment builds. That is how families break. He took a sip of wine, his eyes locked on mine over the rim of the glass. It was a threat. It was a subtle, beautifully wrapped threat. Pay up for everyone, or lose everyone. I looked at Tyler. He was staring at his plate, picking at his green beans, shrinking into his hoodie. He looked miserable. I wanted to reach out and hug him, to tell him that I had secured his future, that I had $500,000 waiting for him in 2 years that his father could never touch. But I stayed silent. I thought I was being smart. I thought silence was my shield. Inner monologue. I should have seen the darkness in Mark's eyes then. I should have realized that a man who uses family unity as a bargaining chip is capable of anything. But I was arrogant. I thought I held all the cards because I held the checkbook. I sat there, sipping my wine, feeling superior, planning my secret gifts. I did not know that Mark was already playing a different game entirely. And while I was busy protecting the money, he was busy poisoning the boy. Well, I said, signaling the end of the conversation. Who wants dessert? The tension did not leave the room. It just settled into the corners, waiting to grow. That night, after they left, I stood at the window and watched Mark's car pull out of the driveway. I felt a cold shiver that had nothing to do with the drafty old house. I turned to Robert. I do not trust him, I whispered. He is family. Autumn, Robert Seahill, taking his heart medication from the counter. We have to try. I am trying, I said. That is why I did what I did. Did what? Robert asked. Nothing. I lead. Just Saoyutsing Haoling. 2 hash is greater than securing our legacy. I looked out at the dark driveway again. The red taillights of Mark's car disappeared into the night. two angry eyes fading into the blackness. That was the beginning. The seeds had been planted. I just did not know that I had watered them with my own secrets. The Greenhaven Country Club was the kind of place where the air always smelled of fresh linens and old money. It was the perfect setting for a disaster disguised as a celebration. We were seated at the best table in the dining room, right next to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the 18th hole. It was Tyler's 18th birthday. This was supposed to be a milestone, the day a boy becomes a man. Instead, it felt like a wake where everyone was still breathing. I watched the waiter pour sparkling cider into Tyler's flute. My grandson looked like he was about to vomit. His face, usually flushed with the vigor of youth, was pale and clammy. He kept bouncing his left leg under the table, a nervous tick that shook the silverware ever so slightly against the china. He checked his phone every 30 seconds, sliding it halfway out of his pocket, glancing at the screen, and then shoving it back down as if it were radioactive. Inner monologue. Look at him. He is terrified. Is it the pressure, the college applications, or maybe it is just the suffocation of sitting next to his father? I remember when he was 5. He used to run into my arms with such force he would nearly knock me over. Now, he looks like a cornered animal waiting for the cage door to open. I should ask him what is wrong. I should pull him aside, but I will not. I do not want to ruin the perfect evening. That is my sin, is it not? I always prioritize the appearance of peace over the messy truth. This bisque is lukewarm, Jessica announced. She dropped her spoon into the bowl with a loud clatter. She looked around the table, waiting for someone to apologize for the chef's incompetence. When no one did, she sighed, a long, drawn-out sound of martyrdom. I am just saying, for the prices they charge here, you would expect perfection, but I guess some people are just used to throwing money away. She shot a look at me. It was subtle, but I caught it. It was a look of pure, distilled envy. It is fine, Jess, Mark said soothingly, placing a hand on her shoulder. Do not let it spoil the mood. Today is about Tyler. I know, Jessica said, dabbing the corner of her mouth. I am just thinking about the twins. We had to leave them with a babysitter, a cheap one, because that is all we could budget for this month. They would have loved the pasta here, but, choices. The twins are 5 and 7. Jessica, I said, cutting into my filet mignon. I doubt they would appreciate a $40 plate of truffle pasta. And besides, this is Tyler's night. Let us not make it about anyone else. Jessica's eyes narrowed. She took a large gulp of her wine. Must be nice to not have to worry about the cost of things, to just sign a check and make problems disappear. Mark works so hard, 80 hours a week trying to get that new venture off the ground, and we still have to count coupons. Inner monologue. Oh, spare me. Mark works 80 hours a week on his golf swing and his ego. I know exactly how much money I gave them for Christmas last year. $10,000. It vanished in a month. New handbags, a lease on a BMW, and business trips to Vegas. They are not poor. They are leaking money like a sieve. And now she wants me to feel guilty because I have managed my husband's estate well. She wants a handout. Again, happy birthday. Inkson Ader, Mark said, his voice booming slightly, reclaiming the spotlight. He stood up, buttoning his blazer. He looked every inch the proud father. If you ignored the cold calculation in his eyes, Tyler flinched. He looked up at his father, his eyes wide and glassy. Thanks, Dad, 18, Mark mused, looking around the restaurant as if addressing an audience. It is a big number. It means you are a legal adult now. It means the law sees you as your own man. No more hiding behind grandma's apron strings. He chuckled. I gripped my steak knife tighter. I got you something, Mark continued. He reached under his chair and pulled out a small, rectangular package wrapped in brown paper. No bow, no frills, just utilitarian packaging. Tyler took it. His hands were shaking. He tore the paper off slowly. It was a book. I squinted to read the title. It was something about wealth mindset and leverage. The Alpha Investor. How to dominate your financial destiny. I wrote an inscription inside. Mark said, leaning in, read it later, but the gist is this. Tyler, a man is defined by his assets and how he protects them. You are going to have opportunities in this life, big ones, maybe sooner than you think. And when those opportunities come, you need to know who is on your team. You need to know who has the vision to multiply your success, and who just wants to keep you safe and small. He glanced at me when he said safe and small. The message was clear. I was the one keeping Tyler small. Mark was the visionary. Tyler stared at the book. He looked like he wanted to throw it through the window. Thanks, Dad, he mumbled. It is Sobbing Uncontrollably. 2 is greater than great. We're going to do big things. You and me, Mark said, clapping a heavy hand on Tyler's shoulder. I have some ideas I want to run by you. Now that you are an adult, we can talk business, real business. Suddenly, Tyler stood up. The chair screeched against the hardwood floor, drawing the attention of the neighboring tables. I need the restroom, Tyler said. His voice was breathless. I will be right back. He practically ran out of the dining room. Teenagers. Jessica scoffed, shaking her head. No manners. You give them a gift, and they run away. If my kids acted like that, Sobbing Uncontrollably. He is just overwhelmed, Robert said gently. It is a big day. I watched the empty archway where Tyler had disappeared. A knot formed in my stomach. It was not just teenage angst. I had seen panic before. I had seen it in the eyes of men who had gambled away their mortgages. Tyler had that look. Inner monologue. Why is he so jittery? The lawyer sent him the notification this morning. By now, he knows. He knows he has access to $500,000. He should be beaming. He should be ordering champagne for the table. Unless Sobbing Uncontrollably. 2 is greater than, unless Mark has already gotten to him. No, that is impossible. The trust is sealed. Mark does not know. Tyler is just a boy who suddenly has a fortune. He is probably in the bathroom, hyperventilating about which sports car to buy. I should be happy for him. I gave him freedom. Why does it feel like I just handed a loaded gun to a toddler? So, Autumn, Mark said, redirecting his attention to me. He picked up his wine glass, his demeanor shifting from fatherly to predatory. While the boy is gone, let us talk about the summer. Jessica and I were thinking of renting a place in the Hamptons for the whole family. It would be great for the cousins to bond. Of course, the deposit is a bit steep. Sobbing Uncontrollably. I stopped listening. I was staring at Tyler's empty chair. On the floor, next to his shoe, was his phone. It had slipped out of his pocket when he stood up. The screen lit up with a notification. I was close enough to read the preview before the screen went black. It was a text message from a contact named Dad. The message read, "Don't forget the transfer. Tonight, or we are both dead. My heart stopped. I looked up at Mark. He was smiling at me, talking about beach houses and family bonding, swirling his wine, looking completely relaxed. But the text came from Dad. Mark was sitting right in front of me. His phone was in his jacket pocket. He had not touched it. Who was texting my grandson? And why did Mark look so calm if he was threatening his son? Or was he? No. Mark is clever. Mark uses burner phones for his affairs. Why would he not use one for his son? Autumn, did you hear me? Mark asked. I. Sao yu ting hao, Ling. Ketu, yes. I stammered. The Hamptons. We will see. Tyler came back to the table. His face was washed, his hair wet at the temples. He looked like he had just splashed cold water on his face for 5 minutes straight. He sat down, saw his phone on the floor, and snatched it up with the speed of a striking cobra. He looked at Mark. Mark looked back and gave him a nearly imperceptible nod. And in that moment, the first crack appeared in my world. It was not just a crack, it was a fissure. The connection between them was not father and son. It was conspiratorial. It was dark, and I was sitting on the wrong side of the table. Let us order dessert, Mark said cheerfully. I feel like celebrating. September arrived with a deceptive calm. The leaves on the oak trees lining our driveway began to turn a rusty orange, and the air grew crisp enough to warrant wool cardigans. In my world, September meant order. It meant the start of the academic year, the resumption of charity galas, and the comforting rhythm of routine. Tyler was supposed to be starting his freshman year at Yale University. I had spent months picturing him there. I imagined him walking through the historic arches, studying in the library, perhaps joining a debate club. I had sent him off with a new wardrobe, a top-of-the-line laptop, and the heavy weight of my expectations. I called him every Sunday. It was our schedule. But for the past 3 weeks, my calls had gone straight to voicemail. Hi, this is Tyler. Leave a message. His voice on the recording sounded so young, so carefree. It was a ghost of the boy I thought I knew. I sat in my husband's study, the receiver of the landline pressed against my ear, listening to the beep for the 10th time that morning. Robert was in the garden, pruning the rose bushes, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in my chest. Inner monologue. He is just busy. That is what boys do. They get to college. They taste freedom. They meet girls. And they forget their grandmothers. It is normal. Stop panicking. Autumn, you are being a suffocating old woman. He is probably in a lecture hall right now, learning about economics or philosophy. He is building his future. The future I paid for, but the knot in my stomach was not loosening. It was tightening, twisting like a wet rag. It was the same feeling I had the night of his birthday. When I saw that text message, "Don't forget the transfer," I decided to call the bursar's office at Yale. I told myself I just wanted to confirm that the tuition payment for the second semester had been set up correctly. It was a lie. I was checking up on him. I was spying. Yale Student Financial Services. This is Brenda speaking. Good morning, Brenda, I said, putting on my most polite society matron voice. My name is Autumn Reynolds. My grandson, Tyler Reynolds, is a freshman there. I am just calling to verify that his housing deposit for the spring has been processed. I would not want him to lose his spot in the dormitory. There was the sound of typing on the other end. A long, agonizing silence. Reynolds. Sao yu ting hao ling. Iki. Tyler. Sayuting Haling. 2. Brenda muttered. Date of birth. I gave her the date. November 25th, 2005. The typing stopped. Ma'am, I am afraid there must be some mistake, Brenda said. Her voice had changed. It was no longer efficient. It was confused. I do not have a registered student by that name for this academic year. My hand gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. That is impossible. He was accepted. We have the acceptance letter framed in our living room. He moved into the dorms 3 weeks ago. I see the acceptance record here, Brenda said slowly. But Mr. Reynolds never completed registration. He submitted a formal withdrawal notice 2 days before classes began. He is not a student here. Mrs. Reynolds, the room spun, the walls of the study, lined with leather-bound books and awards, seemed to close in on me. He withdrew? I whispered. But Sayuting Haoling, 2 hashes greater than where is he? I cannot say. Ma'am, due to privacy laws, I cannot give out any personal contact information, even if I had it. But according to our system, he is not on campus. I hung up the phone without saying goodbye. I stared at the receiver, feeling like I had just been punched in the throat. Tyler was not at Yale. Tyler was not studying. Tyler was gone. And then, the second realization hit me like a freight train. The money. I grabbed my car keys and ran out of the house. I did not tell Robert where I was going. I drove my Mercedes down the winding roads of Greenwich, breaking the speed limit, honking at the slow-moving tourists. I needed to see Mr. Henderson. I needed to see the trust fund. Mr. Henderson's office was in a glass building in downtown Stamford. He saw me without an appointment, likely because I looked like a woman on the verge of a stroke. Autumn? He asked, ushering me into his office. What is wrong? Is it Robert? Pull up the trust, I demanded, ignoring the chair he offered. Tyler's trust? The one that vested on his birthday? Mr. Henderson looked concerned, but he sat down at his computer. He typed in his password. He clicked a few times, then he stopped. His face went pale. He took off his glasses and cleaned them, a nervous habit he only displayed when the news was catastrophic. Well, I snapped. How much is left? Did he spend a few thousand on a car? Did he take a trip? Autumn, Henderson said softly, it is gone. What do you mean? Gone? The account balance is 0. I felt my knees give way. I sank into the leather chair opposite his desk. 0? All of it? $500,000? It was transferred out in 2 lump sums. Henderson said, looking at the screen with disbelief. The first transfer was for $50,000, the day after his 18th birthday. The second transfer, Sayuting Haoling, 2 hash, is greater than for the remaining $450,000. Sayuting Haoling, 2 hash is greater than was 3 days later. Transferred to where? My voice was a croak. It went to a corporate account, Henderson said. He squinted at the screen. A company called Future Horizon Capital Limited Liability Company. It looks like a private equity firm. Future Horizon Capital. I repeated. The name sounded vague. Generic. The kind of name you give a company that does nothing but swallow money. Find out who owns it. I cannot just access corporate registries instantly. Autumn. It takes time. But Sayuting Haoling, 2 hashes greater than Henderson hesitated. I can see the registered agent address for the limited liability company. It is a post office box in Delaware. Delaware, the haven for shell companies. The place where people hide things they do not want the world to see. Inner monologue. Tyler did not do this. He is 18. He buys sneakers and video games. He does not wire $500,000 to a Delaware shell company 3 days after his birthday. He does not have the sophistication to set up a limited liability company. Someone guided his hand. Someone whispered in his ear. Someone told him that investing was better than saving. And I know exactly who that someone is. Print it. I said, print everything. I left the office with a stack of papers that detailed the financial execution of my grandson. I sat in my car in the parking garage, staring at the concrete wall. I felt sick. I had given him that money to be his shield, his armor against the world. Instead, it had been the bait that lured him into a trap. I had one last place to check. Before he left for college, Tyler had rented a small off-campus apartment in New Haven, insisting he needed the space to focus on his studies. I had paid the deposit. I knew the address. The drive to New Haven took 40 minutes. It felt like 40 years. When I arrived at the student housing complex, it was bustling with life. Students were throwing frisbees on the lawn, carrying stacks of pizza boxes, laughing. They looked so young, so safe. I found apartment 4B. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Harder. Finally. I used the spare key I had kept for emergencies. My hand trembled as I inserted it into the lock. The door swung open. The apartment was empty. Not just uninhabited. It was barren. There was no furniture, no bed, no desk, no books. The carpet had vacuum lines on it, as if it had been professionally cleaned yesterday. The only thing left was a single folding chair in the middle of the room and a piece of paper taped to the wall. I walked over to the paper. It was a printout of an email from Tyler Reynolds to Grandma Autumn. Subject, don't look for me. I ripped it off the wall and read it, my vision blurring with tears. Sobbing Uncontrollably. 2# is greater than Grandma. By the time you read this, I will be gone. Please do not try to find me. I am not kidnapped. I am not in trouble. I am finally taking control of my life. You and Grandpa always wanted me to follow your path. College, degree, safe job, safe life. That is your dream, not mine. I have an opportunity to do something real, something massive. I have invested in a venture that is going to change the world, and it is going to change my life. I am going to be a millionaire on my own terms, not because you handed me an allowance. I know you will be angry about the money, but it was mine. You gave it to me, and I am using it to build an empire. Dad supports me. He believes in me. He is the only one who actually listens to my ideas without judging them. Do not call the police. Do not call Dad. He is just advising me. He is not responsible for my choices. I am a man now. I will come back when I have proved you all wrong. Until then, leave me alone. Sobbing Uncontrollably. Iki. Tyler. I crumbled the paper in my fist. A scream built up in my throat, a primal sound of rage and grief. But I swallowed it down. It tasted like bile. Dad supports me. Of course he did. Sobbing Uncontrollably. To Mark. It all clicked into place. The text message. The book about alpha investors. The withdrawal of the funds. The shell company in Delaware. Mark had not just stolen the money. That would have been too simple. He had done something far more sinister. He had convinced Tyler to give him the money. He had gaslighted my grandson into believing that handing over his entire inheritance to his father's shady business scheme was an act of independence. He had framed it as a rebellion against me. I am going to be a millionaire on my own terms. Those were not Tyler's words. Tyler did not talk like that. Those were Mark's words coming out of Tyler's mouth. I looked around the empty room. It was a tomb for the boy I had raised. Mark had played the long game. He knew about the trust. Somehow, he knew. Maybe Tyler had slipped up. Maybe Mark had snooped through my emails. It did not matter how. He knew, and he had spent the last 2 years grooming his son for this exact moment. He had turned Tyler against us, painting our concern as control, and his greed as vision. I walked out of the apartment. The sun was setting now, casting long, distorted shadows across the parking lot. I felt old. I felt brittle, as if a strong wind could snap my bones. But beneath the sorrow, a cold fire began to ignite in my belly. It was not the hot, impulsive anger of a mother. It was the calculated, ruthless fury of a matriarch who has been crossed. Mark thought he had won. He thought he had secured the money and alienated the grandson, leaving me helpless. He thought I would crumble. He was wrong. I took out my phone and dialed Robert. Autumn? His voice was worried. Where have you been? It is getting dark. I am coming home. Robert, I said. My voice was steady, terrifyingly calm. We have a problem. A very big problem. But I know exactly how to fix it. Is it Tyler? No, I said, looking at the crumbled letter in my hand one last time before tossing it into the passenger seat. It is Mark, and I am going to destroy him. The silence in our living room was heavy, broken only by the sound of the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. I had just finished telling Robert everything. My husband, usually the pillar of stoic strength, sat slumped on the velvet sofa, his face buried in his hands. He looked 10 years older than he had that morning. The revelation that our grandson was gone, and our money with him, had drained the life out of him. He stole it. Autumn, Robert whispered, his voice trembling. Mark stole it. He used our own boy as a mule. I know, I said, standing by the fireplace, staring into the cold ashes. And he thinks he is untouchable because Tyler signed the transfers voluntarily. Before we could formulate a plan, the doorbell rang. It was not a polite visitor's ring. It was a long, insistent press that echoed through the house like a siren. I knew who it was. I could feel his presence through the oak door. I walked to the foyer and opened the door. Mark stood there, flanked by Jessica. I expected to see worry on their faces. I expected a distraught father and a concerned stepmother asking if we had heard from Tyler. Instead, they looked furious. Mark pushed past me without an invitation, storming into the hallway. Jessica followed, her heels clicking aggressively on the marble floor. She was clutching a designer handbag against her chest like a shield. Where is he? Mark demanded. He did not look at me. He looked around the room as if searching for a hidden camera. If you are looking for your son, I said, my voice shaking with suppressed rage. You know exactly where he is. You sent him there. Mark spun around, his face twisting into a mask of incredulity. Excuse me? I sent him? You are the one who gave an 18-year-old boy $500,000 without telling his parents. You handed a loaded gun to a child. Autumn, and now that he has run off to play venture capitalist, you want to blame me? Inner monologue. Listen to him. He is spinning the narrative already. He is turning my generosity into a weapon against me. He knows exactly where the money went. It went into his shell company, but he is standing here in my foyer, screaming about responsibility, acting like the aggrieved father. It is masterful. It is sickening. I know about Future Horizon Capital, I said, stepping closer to him. I know about the Delaware registration. I know you groomed him to drain that account. Mark laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. Groomed him? I advised him. He came to me. Autumn. He came to me because he knew you would try to control him. He wanted to invest. He wanted to build something. I just facilitated his dream. Whatever happens to that money is on him. He is an adult, but that is not why we are here. He took a step back and put an arm around Jessica, who was now dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue. We are here because of the damage you have done to this family, Mark said. His voice dropped to a low, dangerous register. Do you have any idea how much pain you have caused? Robert stood up from the sofa. Get out of my house. In Mark. No. Jessica spoke up. Her voice was shrill. We will not get out. Not until you hear us. You think you are so high and mighty with your secret trust funds. But what about my kids? What about Liam and Sophia? They are part of this family too. I stared at her. What are you talking about? You gave Tyler $500,000. Jessica spat the numbers out like poison. And you gave my children nothing. Zero. Do you know what that feels like? Do you know the psychological trauma that causes to know that their grandparents value their stepbrother $500,000 more than them? They are not my grandchildren, I said coldly. They are your children from a previous marriage. I treat them kindly. I buy them gifts, but I am not obligated to give them my estate. They call you Grandma. Jessica screamed. They draw you pictures, and you treat them like second-class citizens because they do not share your precious blood. It is discrimination. It is cruel. Liam asked me yesterday why Tyler gets to go on special trips and have secret bank accounts. And he gets nothing. He is crying himself to sleep. Autumn, inner monologue. She is lying. Her son is 5 years old. A 5-year-old does not ask about trust funds. A 5-year-old asks for ice cream. They have rehearsed this. They have sat at their kitchen table, calculated the damages, and scripted this entire outrage. They do not care about Tyler running away. They see the money Tyler got, and they are enraged that they did not get a cut. Mark stepped forward, shielding his wife. He adopted the pose of a noble protector. This is about equity. Robert, it is about fairness. You cannot elevate one child and crush the others. It destroys the family dynamic. You have created a toxic environment. So what do you want? Robert asked, his chest heaving. You want us to apologize? We want you to make it right. Mark said smoothly. We want parity. If Tyler got $500,000, then Liam and Sophia deserve the same, $250,000 each. Put it in a trust under my management. It is the only way to heal the wound you inflicted. I stared at him. The audacity was breathtaking. He had just orchestrated the theft of my grandson's inheritance, and now he was using that theft as a precedent to demand more. You are insane. I whispered. You will not get a dime. I am calling the police. I am going to report you for fraud. Mark's face went cold. The faux passion evaporated, leaving behind something dead and reptilian. Go ahead, Mark said softly. Call the police. Tell them your adult grandson invested his own money in a private equity firm. See how far that gets you. It is a civil matter. Autumn and Tyler will testify against you. He hates you right now. He thinks you are trying to stifle his potential. He paused, letting the words sink in. Then he delivered the final blow. But if you refuse to make things right for Jessica's children, so Yu Ting Hao Ling, 2 hash is greater than if you refuse to treat this family equally. Sobbing Uncontrollably. 2 hash is greater than, then there will be consequences. Are you threatening me? I asked. I am setting boundaries. Mark said, if you are not willing to support all my children, you do not get to see any of them. That includes Chloe. My heart stopped. Chloe, my granddaughter, Tyler's 14-year-old sister. She was the light of my life. A sweet girl who loved painting and still came over on Sundays to bake cookies with me. She was innocent in all of this. You cannot do that. Robert gasped. She is our flesh and blood. I am her father. Mark said, I have sole custody since your daughter passed. I decide who she associates with, and I will not have her around people who discriminate against her step-siblings. It is unhealthy. I have already blocked your number on her phone. If you try to contact her at school, I will file a restraining order for harassment. You are a monster, I said, tears finally spilling over. I am a father protecting his family from toxic favoritism. Mark corrected. He checked his watch, as if he had a business meeting to attend. Think about it. $250,000 for each of the twins. It is a small price to pay to keep your family intact. You have the money. Autumn, we all know you have it. He turned to Jessica. Come on, honey, let us go. The air in here is bad for your stress. Jessica shot me one last look of triumphant spite, adjusted her bag, and followed him out. The door slammed shut. The sound echoed like a gunshot. I stood there, paralyzed. I looked at Robert. He was clutching his left arm, his face pale. He has her, Robert whispered. He has Chloe. Mark had stripped us bare. He had taken the money. He had taken Tyler. And now he had taken Chloe hostage. And the terrifying part was, he believed he was right. He believed he was entitled to every penny we had earned, simply because he had married into it. I walked to the window and watched them get into their car. Mark held the door open for Jessica. The picture of a gentleman, inner monologue. I should have killed him. I should have killed him years ago when my daughter brought him home. But I was polite. I was civilized. And now, my civility is the noose around my neck. He thinks he has won. He thinks I will write a check to see Chloe. He does not know me. He thinks I am a grandmother. He is about to find out that I am a predator too. Robert, I said, turning away from the window. Call the private investigator, the one we used for the background check on the gardener last year. I want everything on Mark. Every receipt, every email, every text. If he wants a war, I will burn his whole world down. The digital age is a terrifying thing. It gives a megaphone to liars and a mute button to the truth. For the first 24 hours after Mark stormed out of our house, the silence was absolute. I called Chloe's cell phone 17 times. Each time, I was met with a cold, robotic recording telling me that the subscriber was not accepting calls from this number. I tried the landline at Mark's house. Disconnected. I even drove by their house. A modest colonial in a subdivision 5 miles away. But the blinds were drawn tight, and a security camera mounted above the garage door blinked at me like a red, unblinking eye. I knew if I stepped onto the property, the police would be called. Mark had been clear. I returned home to find Robert sitting in the kitchen, staring at his iPad. His face was the color of ash. His hand, usually so steady when he held a golf club or a fountain pen, was trembling so violently that the tablet rattled against the marble countertop. Do not look at it. Autumn, he whispered, not looking up. Do not look. Look at what? I asked, placing my keys on the hook. the neighborhood group, the Facebook page for the Homeowners Association, and the Greenwich Community Forum. I walked over and took the iPad from his hands. My finger hovered over the screen. I did not want to see. I wanted to close my eyes and pretend that my biggest problem was the aphids on my hydrangeas. But I swiped the screen. There was a post from Mark Reynolds. It had been uploaded 3 hours ago. It already had 412 comments and over 1,000 reactions. There was a picture attached. It was a photo of the twins, Liam and Sophia, looking sad and holding a hand-drawn sign that said, "Why does not Grandma love us?" The caption read, "It breaks my heart to air family dirty laundry. But I have no choice. We have tried to be patient. We have tried to be understanding. But when does tradition become abuse?" My in-laws, the wealthy and respected Robert and Autumn Reynolds, have decided that blood purity is the only thing that matters. They recently gave my son Tyler a massive inheritance, enough to set him up for life. I am happy for him, but when we asked if they could spare even a fraction of that support for my younger children who have called them Grandma and Grandpa their whole lives, we were thrown out of their house. They told us that my wife's children are not their responsibility. They told us that our family is not real. The pain on my wife's face was unbearable. We live in a modest home. We struggle with bills like everyone else. Meanwhile, they sit in a mansion with millions in the bank, picking and choosing which grandchildren are worthy of love based on deoxyribonucleic acid. It is elitist. It is cruel, and frankly, it feels like they are punishing my wife for being a single mother before she met me. We are heartbroken, but we will protect our children from this toxicity. We are stepping away from the Reynolds family until they learn that love should not have a price tag. I felt the blood drain from my face. It was a masterpiece of fiction. He had woven a thread of truth that we refuse to give money into a tapestry of lies about discrimination and cruelty. Inner monologue. He is brilliant. I hate him, but he is brilliant. He knows exactly which buttons to push. He knows that in this climate, nothing triggers a mob faster than a story of a wealthy elite abusing a struggling family. He has painted us as the villains in a Dickens novel. He has weaponized the twins. That sign, Sao Yu Tsing Hao Ling, 2 hashes greater than he probably made them draw it. He probably told them we hated them to get them to cry for the photo. He is not just a thief. He is a director of human misery. I scrolled down to the comments. They were a cesspool. Susan M. Disgusting. I always thought Autumn looked stuck up at the charity gala. Now I know why. Jusserade atuk fierce. Eat the rich. They probably made their money exploiting workers anyway. Boycott whatever business they owned. Jennifer K. My heart breaks for you. Mark, you are a good dad for standing up to them. Cut them off. They do not deserve access to those angels. Local Mom 4, 5. This is abuse. Pure and simple. Someone should call Adult Protective Services on them. Maybe they are senile. They hate us. Robert said, his voice cracking. People we have known for 30 years. Autumn, people we have had dinner with. They are liking the post. They are commenting. They do not know the truth. Robert, I said, putting the iPad down face down. They are sheep. They believe whatever confirms their bias. It is not just the internet, Robert said. He stood up, pacing the kitchen floor, rubbing his left arm. I went to the pharmacy this morning to get my blood pressure medication. The pharmacist, Sao Yu Tsing Hao Ling. To Bill, Sao Yu Tsing Hao Ling. 2# is greater than he has known me for 20 years. He would not look me in the eye. He just handed me the bag and walked away. I am a pariah in my own town. We will sue him for defamation, I said, my voice rising. And prove what? Robert shouted. It was the first time he had raised his voice at me in a decade. That we did give Tyler $500,000 and the twins nothing. The facts support his story. Autumn, the context is missing, but the facts are there. If we sue, we just drag it out. We look like bullies suing a struggling father. He leaned against the counter, gasping for breath. His face was flushed, a deep, unhealthy red. Robert, sit down, I said, rushing to him. You are getting too worked up. My heart is broken, he cried. My name, Xiao Jinghao Ling. 2# is greater than my father's name. Xiao Jinghao Ling. 2# is greater than he is dragging it through the mud. And Tyler, Xiao Jinghao Ling. Deva. My God. Everyone thinks Tyler ran away because we gave him too much money. Mark has twisted everything. The phone rang. It was the landline. We both stared at it. I picked it up. Hello? Mrs. Reynolds? It was a woman's voice. Cold. Official. This is Karen from the Homeowners Association Board. I am calling regarding the upcoming fall festival. Given the Xiao Jinghao Ling, 2# is greater than recent disturbances and the community sentiment expressed online. Xiao Jinghao Ling, 2# is greater than the board feels. It would be best if you and Robert did not attend this year. We want to avoid any uncomfortable confrontations. I did not answer. I just hung up the phone. The isolation was complete. In 24 hours, Mark had turned our gold-plated life into a prison. I looked at Robert. He had sunk onto a kitchen stool, his head in his hands, weeping silently. This was a man who had built a company from the ground up, who had weathered recessions and lawsuits. But this, Xiao Jinghao Ling, 2# is greater than the public shame, the betrayal by family. Xiao Jinghao Ling, 2# is greater than it was destroying him. And in that moment, watching my husband crumble, something inside me snapped. The fear vanished. The embarrassment vanished. The desire to maintain appearances vanished. All that was left was a cold, a hard block of ice where my heart used to be. Inner monologue. Mark thinks this is a game of public relations. He thinks if he shames us enough, we will write a check just to make the noise stop. He thinks we are weak, old people terrified of scandal. He is wrong. I am not afraid of scandal anymore. I am not afraid of anything. He has hurt Robert. He has taken my reputation. He has taken my grandchildren. There is nothing left to lose. And a person with nothing to lose is the most dangerous creature on earth. I walked over to the drawer where we kept the phone book, though I did not need it. I pulled out a business card I had tucked away the day before. It was for a man named Mr. Vance, a private investigator who specialized in forensic accounting and difficult family matters. I dialed the number. Vance, Investigations. A gruff voice answered. Mr. Vance, I said. My voice was steady. It did not sound like my voice. It sounded like the voice of an executioner reading a sentence. This is Autumn Reynolds. I want to hire you. Okay. Mrs. Reynolds. What are we looking for? An affair? Missing assets? War. I said, I want you to dig into Mark Patterson. I want to know what he ate for breakfast in 1999. I want to know every bank account, every shell company, every text message, every parking ticket. I want you to find the dirt he has buried so deep even he has forgotten about it. I do not care what it costs. I do not care if it is illegal. I want you to give me the ammunition to bury him." There was a pause on the other end. Then, a low chuckle. "I like your tone, Mrs. Reynolds. I charge $200 an hour plus expenses. I will double it if you start tonight," I said. I hung up the phone. I turned to Robert. He was looking at me, his eyes red and swollen. "What are you doing, Autumn?" he asked weakly. "I am finished playing defense." "Robert," I said. I walked over and kissed him on the forehead. His skin was clammy. "Go upstairs and rest. Take a pill. Close the blinds." Mark wanted a reaction. He is going to get one. He wanted our attention. He has it. All of it. The sun was setting outside, casting long shadows across the kitchen floor. The house felt like a fortress under siege. But for the first time in days, I did not feel helpless. I felt a grim sense of purpose. Mark had started a fire. He did not realize I was the one holding the gasoline. The storm came in off the Atlantic 3 days later. A nor'easter that rattled the window panes of our colonial estate like a thief trying to pry them open. The wind howled through the chimneys, a mournful, hollow sound that made the hairs on my arms stand up. Inside, the house felt less like a sanctuary and more like a mausoleum. The heating system was working overtime, but a damp chill seemed to seep from the walls themselves. Robert was sitting in his leather armchair by the unlit fireplace. He had a blanket draped over his legs. In just 72 hours, he had withered. The man who used to play 18 holes of golf every Saturday now looked as fragile as dried parchment. He was staring at the blank television screen, his breathing shallow and wheezy. The bottle of nitroglycerin pills for his heart condition sat on the side table, a constant, ominous reminder of his frailty. I was in the kitchen making tea, my hands moving automatically. Earl Grey, 2 sugars for him, none for me. I was trying to keep things normal. I was trying to pretend that half the town was not whispering about us, that our grandson was not missing, and that we were not being besieged by a sociopath. Then came the pounding. It was not a knock. It was a fist hammering against the solid oak of the front door, rhythmic and violent. Thud, thud, thud. I froze. Robert flinched in his chair, his hand going to his chest. "Who is that at this hour?" Robert rasped, his voice thin. "It is raining sideways out there. Stay there, Robert," I said, putting the kettle down. "I will handle it." I walked to the foyer. I did not turn on the porch light. I peered through the peephole. A figure stood there, drenched in rain, hair plastered to his forehead, swaying slightly. It was Mark. I unlocked the door and opened it just a crack. The wind caught it and ripped it from my grip, slamming it against the wall. Rain sprayed into the hallway, soaking the Persian rug. Mark stood on the threshold. He looked deranged. His expensive suit was soaked through, the fabric dark and heavy. His tie was loosened, hanging askew like a noose. But it was his eyes that terrified me. They were bloodshot, wide, and swimming with a mixture of alcohol and panic. "Let me in," he slurred. "You are drunk, Mark," I said, trying to close the door against the wind. "Go home. We have nothing to say to you." He shoved his weight against the door, forcing his way inside. He stumbled into the foyer, dripping water everywhere. He smelled of stale whiskey and ozone. "I am not going anywhere," he spat, wiping rain from his eyes. "We need to talk." Now, Robert appeared in the hallway doorway, clutching his blanket. "Get out of my house, Mark, before I call the sheriff." Mark laughed. It was a wet, gurgling sound. Call him. Go ahead. Call the sheriff. Tell him your grandson is about to be kneecapped by loan sharks because his grandparents are too cheap to help him. The words hung in the air, heavier than the storm outside. What are you talking about? I asked, my blood running cold. Tyler, Mark said, leaning against the wall for support. The genius investor, the boy you ruined with your money. He walked into the living room, uninvited, and collapsed onto the sofa. He put his head in his hands. He lost it, Mark whispered. He lost it all, every penny, the $500,000. Gone. How? Robert asked, his voice trembling. It has been less than a month. Leverage, Mark said, looking up. His eyes were wild. He did not just invest the cash. He used it as collateral to borrow more. Margin trading, crypto futures, high-risk garbage. I told him to be careful, but he would not listen. He wanted to double it. He wanted to impress you. Inner monologue. Liar. You told him to do it. You probably set up the accounts. You probably hold the other side of the trade. You funneled the money out. And now you are blaming the boy's incompetence. It is the perfect heist. And now? I asked, my voice steady despite the shaking of my hands. Now he owes people. Mark said, bad people. He is in the hole for another $200,000. They are calling me. They are calling his friends. They are going to find him. Autumn. And when they do, Sao Ting Hao Ling, 2 hashes greater than. He made a graphic gesture across his throat. Robert swayed. He grabbed the back of his armchair to steady himself. My God. Sao Ting Hao Ling. Iki. Tyler. Sao Ting Hao Ling. Ting Hao Dayu. I can save him. Mark said suddenly. The desperation in his voice shifted. It became sharp, transactional. I know the guys he owes. I can broker a deal. I can settle the debt and get him out of the country until the heat dies down. But I need cash, liquid cash, immediately. We do not have $200,000 in cash lying around the house. I said. Mark looked around the room, his eyes assessing the paintings, the antique furniture, the silver vases. You have this house, Mark said. It is worth $3 million. Easy. Take out an emergency equity line. Or better yet, sell it to my partner. He buys distressed properties for cash. Quick, close. We can have the money by Friday. Sell our home? Robert gasped. This is our life. Mark, we have lived here for 40 years. What is a house worth compared to Tyler's life? Mark screamed. Standing up, he loomed over Robert, aggressive and menacing. You selfish old man. You sit here in your ivory tower while your grandson is being hunted. Do you want him dead? Is that it? You want to bury him so you can keep your precious antiques? Stop it, I yelled, stepping between them. You are twisting everything. You caused this. Mark, you are the one who led him down this path. I am the only one trying to fix it. Mark roared. Spittle flew from his mouth. I need the deed. Robert, I need you to sign the house over as collateral tonight. If you do not, Tyler is dead by morning. Robert's face turned a terrifying shade of purple. He clutched his chest, his fingers digging into his sweater. Get Sao Ting Hao Ling. 2 hash is greater than out. Sao Ting Hao Ling. 2 hash is greater than. Robert wheezed. Sign the paper. Mark reached into his wet jacket and pulled out a crumpled document. He slammed it onto the coffee table. Sign it. Or do you want his blood on your hands too? Robert, I screamed. Robert gasped. Horrible. Wet sound. His eyes rolled back in his head. He crumpled to the floor like a puppet whose strings had been cut. He hit the carpet with a dull thud. Robert. I dropped to my knees beside him. He was convulsing. His skin was gray, clammy. He was clutching his left arm. Mark, help me. He is having a heart attack. I looked up at Mark. Mark stood there. He did not move. He did not kneel. He just watched. The room seemed to slow down. The sound of the rain faded into a dull roar. The only thing I could hear was Robert's ragged, gasping breath. The pills, Robert whispered, pointing a shaking finger toward the side table. Nitro, 小于井号零, R, 井号大于. The bottle of nitroglycerin was on the table, just 3 feet away. But Mark was standing between me and the table. Mark, move, I screamed. I tried to scramble past him. Mark did not step aside. He shifted his weight, blocking my path. It was not blatant. It looked like he was just stumbling in his drunken state. But his eyes, 小于井号零, 2 hashes greater than his eyes were clear. They were cold, calculating, and utterly devoid of humanity. Inner monologue. He is not moving. He sees Robert dying. He sees the pills, and he is doing nothing. He is calculating the inheritance. If Robert dies, I am the sole owner. Maybe he thinks I am weaker. Maybe he thinks grief will make me sign. Or maybe he just hates us that much. He is killing him. He is not using a knife or a gun, but he is killing him just as surely. Mark, please, I begged, tears streaming down my face. Give me the pills. Mark looked at the bottle. He looked at Robert, writhing on the floor. He looked at his watch. He looks bad. Autumn, Mark said slowly. Maybe it is his time. Stress is a killer. You bastard. I lunged at him, clawing at his legs. I pushed past his wetsuit trousers and scrambled for the table. I grabbed the bottle. My hands were shaking so hard I could not get the cap off. Help me, I shrieked. Mark stood motionless. He watched me struggle with the child-proof cap. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, crucial seconds. Finally, the cap popped off. Pills scattered across the floor. I grabbed one and shoved it under Robert's tongue. Robert, stay with me, I sobbed, holding his face. Stay with me. Darling. Robert's eyes met mine. They were full of fear. And then, slowly, a terrible realization. He looked up at Mark, towering over us like a dark omen. Robert knew. In his final moments, he knew that his son-in-law was watching him die. Robert's grip on my hand tightened, then went slack. The gasping stopped. The chest stopped heaving. No, I whispered. No, no, no. I started cardiopulmonary resuscitation. I pushed on his chest, counting the rhythm, praying to a God I had not spoken to in years. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mark finally moved. He pulled out his phone. He did not dial 911 immediately. He scrolled for a moment, deleted something, and then dialed. Hello? Emergency? Mark said. His voice changed instantly. The drunken slur vanished. He sounded frantic, terrified. Please, send an ambulance. My father-in-law, he collapsed. I think it is his heart. We are doing cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Please hurry. He looked down at me, pumping Robert's chest. He put a hand on my shoulder. Is he breathing? Mom? He asked, loud enough for the operator to hear. Keep going. Mom, do not give up. I pushed his hand away. I wanted to vomit. I pumped until my arms burned. I pumped until I heard the sirens wailing over the wind. I pumped until the paramedics burst through the door, tracking mud and water into the house. They pushed me aside. They used the defibrillator. Clear. The body jumped. Clear. Again. I sat on the floor, hugging my knees, watching the flat line on the monitor. It was a green line that refused to spike. It was a horizon line that went on forever. Time of death, the paramedic murmured. 9:47 post-meridium. The room went silent. The storm outside seemed to stop out of respect, or perhaps out of satisfaction. Mark let out a ragged sob. He slumped against the wall, sliding down until he was sitting on the floor, his head in his hands. "Dad," he wailed. "Oh God, Dad." I tried to catch him. It happened so fast. One of the paramedics, a young woman, put a hand on Mark's shoulder. "I am so sorry for your loss. Sir, you did the right thing calling us." I looked at him. I looked at the man who had stood like a statue while my husband gasped for air. I looked at the man who had blocked the medicine. I looked at the man who was now performing the role of the grieving son with Oscar-worthy precision. I did not scream. I did not attack him. I felt something inside me die right along with Robert, the last shred of Autumn Reynolds, the philanthropist, the grandmother, the woman who believed in rules and decency, evaporated. I stood up, my knees cracked. I smoothed my skirt. I walked over to Robert's body and kissed his cold forehead. "Goodbye, my love," I whispered. "I promise you, he will pay. He will pay for every second he made you wait." I turned to Mark. He was peeking at me through his fingers, checking my reaction. I stared right through him. I did not see a family member anymore. I saw a target. "Get out," I said. My voice was a whisper, but it carried across the room like a blade. "Mom, I cannot leave you alone." Saluting Haoling. 2# is greater than Mark started. Standing up, "Get out." Mark nodded solemnly, playing the misunderstood hero. "I will handle the arrangements. Mom, I will take care of everything. Just rest." He walked out into the rain. The door clicked shut. I was alone with the body of my husband and the silence of a house that was now too big, too empty, and filled with ghosts. Mark thought he had won. He thought he had broken me. He had killed the head of the household and left a grieving widow. But he forgot one thing. Widows in our world are the ones who control the estate, and this widow was done mourning. I looked at the crumpled document Mark had left on the coffee table, the deed transfer. I picked it up and walked to the fireplace. I struck a match and watched the paper curl and blacken, turning into ash. The war had just turned from financial to mortal. The sound of wet earth hitting the mahogany casket was the loudest noise I had ever heard. It was a dull, hollow thud that seemed to echo in the marrow of my bones. We were standing in the family plot of the St. Mary's Cemetery, huddled under a sea of black umbrellas. The rain had not stopped since the night Robert died. It fell in sheets, turning the ground into a slick, treacherous mud that threatened to swallow us whole. I stood at the edge of the grave. I was wearing a black veil, an old-fashioned affectation I had insisted upon. I did not want the town to see my eyes. I did not want them to see the hollowness, or worse, the burning, dry rage that had replaced my tears. Mark stood to my right. He was holding an umbrella over my head, playing the role of the dutiful son-in-law to perfection. He wore a crisp black suit, his hair gelled back, his face a mask of solemn, dignified grief. Every few minutes, he would lean in and whisper loudly enough for the neighbors to hear. "Are you okay? Mom? Do you need to sit down? I am right here." Inner monologue. "Get away from me. Your breath smells like mints and betrayal. You are standing on the grave of the man you murdered. You watched him gasp for air. You withheld his medicine. And now you are holding an umbrella over me like a shield? You are not shielding me from the rain. Mark, you are shielding yourself from suspicion. You want everyone to see how supportive you are. You want the narrative to be clear, the grieving widow and the strong, capable son-in-law stepping up to take the reins. The priest, Father O'Malley, was droning on about Robert's kindness, his generosity, his love for his community. I tuned him out. I was watching the crowd. Half the town was here. Business partners, charity committee members, neighbors who had ignored us after Mark's Facebook post. They were all here now, drawn by the spectacle of death. I saw them whispering behind their gloved hands. I saw the way they glanced at Mark with sympathy. Poor Mark. They were thinking, he has to take care of that senile old woman now. He has to clean up the mess. When the service ended, Mark stepped forward to deliver the final eulogy. He cleared his throat and looked out at the congregation. He wiped a non-existent tear from his eye. "Robert was more than a father-in-law to me," Mark said, his voice trembling with practiced emotion. "He was a mentor, a friend, a second father. He taught me about integrity. He taught me about family." And in his final moments, Xiao Yu, Jinghao, Ling. 2 hashes greater than Mark paused, looking down at his shoes before looking up bravely. In his final moments, I held his hand. I told him I would protect this family. I told him I would take care of Autumn, and I intend to keep that promise, no matter how hard the road ahead may be. A murmur of approval went through the crowd. Jessica, standing in the front row with the twins, let out a loud, theatrical sob. I felt sick, physically sick. The bile rose in my throat, bitter and acidic. He was rewriting history in real time. He was claiming Robert's legacy before the body was even cold. After the burial, the procession moved back to our house for the wake. I had not wanted a reception. I wanted to lock the doors and scream until my voice gave out, but Mark had insisted. "It is tradition. Autumn," he had said, "people need to pay their respects." The house was filled with the smell of stale coffee and lilies. Strangers were tracking mud onto my Persian rugs. They ate the caterer's sandwiches and drank Robert's scotch. I sat in the corner of the living room, in Robert's favorite armchair, clutching a handkerchief I had not used. I was a statue. People came up to me, mumbled their condolences, and quickly moved away, uncomfortable with my stony silence. Mark was everywhere. He was the host. He was pouring drinks. He was shaking hands. He was accepting envelopes of money meant for the memorial fund. He looked energized. He looked like a chief executive officer who had just completed a hostile takeover. About an hour into the wake, Mark approached me. He was not alone. Beside him was a man I did not recognize. He was short, balding, with a suit that looked expensive but fit poorly. He carried a leather briefcase. "Mom," Mark said, crouching down beside my chair so he was at eye level. "This is Mr. Sterling. He is an attorney I have retained to help us with Xiao Yu Jinghao Ling." 2 hashes greater than the transition. I looked at Mr. Sterling. He had the eyes of a shark, dead, black, and constantly moving. "Mrs. Reynolds, my condolences," Mr. Sterling said. His voice was oily. "I hate to intrude on such a somber day, but there are some urgent matters regarding the estate that we need to discuss, given the circumstances. Time is of the essence. Not now, I said, staring straight ahead. My husband is not even cold. It is about the accounts. Mom, Mark whispered, with Robert gone, the banks are going to freeze everything. We need to make sure the mortgage is paid. We need to make sure you have access to cash. Mr. Sterling has prepared some paperwork to ensure there is no interruption in your care. My care? I turned my head slowly to look at him. I am perfectly capable of paying the mortgage. Mark, my name is on every account. Mark Hill. It was a sound of deep, weary patience, performed for the benefit of the guests nearby. Mom, please, do not make a scene. You know how confused you have been lately. With the stress, Sobbing Uncontrollably. 2# is greater than, and the incident with Tyler. Sobbing Uncontrollably. 2# is greater than. We just want to help. Let us go into Robert's study, where it is quiet, just for 5 minutes. He put his hand on my elbow. His grip was firm. It was not a suggestion. I stood up. I let him guide me through the crowd of mourners. I saw Jessica watching us from the buffet table. She caught my eye and gave me a small, tight smile. It was the smile of a woman who knows she has won. We entered the study. Mark closed the heavy oak doors, shutting out the hum of the wake. The room smelled of Robert's pipe tobacco. His reading glasses were still on the desk, right where he had left them. Mr. Sterling did not sit down. He walked to the desk and placed his briefcase on the leather blotter. He clicked the latches open. The sound was like a gunshot in the quiet room. Mrs. Reynolds, Mr. Sterling began, pulling out a thick stack of documents. As you know, your late husband's estate is significant. However, recent events have raised some concerns regarding the Sobbing Uncontrollably. 2# is greater than management of family assets. What concerns? I asked. I was standing in the middle of the room, refusing to sit. Mark walked over to the window and looked out at the rain. Specifically, the loss of $500,000. He said without turning around. That was Tyler. I said, you know, that was Tyler. Mark turned. His face was devoid of the grief he had worn outside. Now, it was just hard angles and cold calculation. Was it, Mom? Or did you give it to him? Or did you lose it? The story keeps changing. You told the police he stole it. You told the bank you authorized it. You are inconsistent. I did not tell the bank that. I snapped. You are grieving. Autumn, Mark said, walking toward me. You are under immense strain. We have noticed. Sobbing Uncontrollably. 2# is greater than slips. Forgetting names. Getting lost in your own house. Acting irrationally. I stared at him. I had never been sharper in my life. What are you doing, Mark? I asked. My voice dropped to a whisper. I am protecting you, he said. Mr. Sterling slid the document across the desk. It was titled, Petition for Conservatorship of the Person and Estate. I looked at the words. I knew what they meant. I had read about them in the news. It meant he wanted to become my legal guardian. He wanted to strip me of my rights. He wanted to control my money, my medical decisions, my travel, my life. You want to put me under a conservatorship? I asked. I felt a laugh bubbling up in my throat, hysterical and jagged. You think a judge will grant this? I am 65, not 90. I drive a car. I run charities. Mark shook his head sadly. You gave $500,000 to a teenager who vanished. Mom, that is not the action of a sound mind. That is reckless. It shows a decline in cognitive function. Mr. Sterling has an affidavit from a doctor, a specialist, who has reviewed your behavior and agrees that you are showing early signs of dementia. A doctor? I asked. I have not seen a doctor in 6 months. He reviewed your case file. Mr. Sterling interjected smoothly. Based on the testimony of your family. My family, I repeated. You mean Mark and Jessica? Mark stepped closer. He was invading my personal space now, using his height to intimidate me. Look at the reality. Autumn, Robert is dead. Tyler is gone. You are alone in this big house. You are vulnerable. People will try to take advantage of you. I am the only man left in the family. I am stepping up. If you sign this voluntary consent, we can keep it private. I will manage the assets. I will make sure you are comfortable. You can stay here. We will hire nurses. You will not have to worry about a thing. And if I do not sign? I asked. Mark's eyes narrowed. Then we file it with the court on Monday morning. It becomes public record. We will have to testify about your mental state. We will have to bring up the missing money. We will have to bring up how you let Robert die because you were too panicked to find his pills. The air left the room. You are going to blame me for his heart attack? I whispered. I am saying that a woman in her right mind would have saved him. Mark said softly. The fact that he died. Saoyud Singh Ha Ling. 2 hash is greater than it suggests. You were confused. You froze. It is tragic, but it is evidence. Do you really want the town to know that you let Robert die? Do you want to be dragged through a competency hearing? Or do you want to retire with dignity and let me handle the burden? I looked at the document. Voluntary consent. It was a coup, a bloodless, paper-cut coup. He did not just want the money. He wanted to erase me. He wanted to turn me into a ghost in my own house. A senile old woman staring out the window while he spent my fortune and raised his stepchildren in my home. I looked at Mr. Sterling. He was holding a pen out to me. Just sign right there. Mrs. Reynolds, he said. It is for the best. I reached out and took the pen. It was heavy. A Mont Blanc. It belonged to Robert. I looked at the pen. I looked at Mark. He was smiling encouragingly, like a parent watching a toddler tie their shoes. Inner monologue. He thinks I am broken. He thinks the grief has hollowed me out so much that I will just collapse into his arms. He thinks I am afraid of the shame. He thinks I am afraid of the public knowing about Tyler. He's betting everything on my silence. He is betting on my politeness. He is betting on the Autumn Reynolds, who hosted tea parties and worried about floral arrangements. But that Autumn Reynolds died 3 days ago. She died on the floor next to her husband. The woman standing here now, she is something else entirely. I held the pen over the paper. Mark's breath hitched in anticipation. Then, slowly, deliberately, I capped the pen. The click was loud in the silence. I looked Mark in the eye. No, I said. Mark's smile faltered. Excuse me? I said no. I repeated. My voice was not loud, but it was steady. It was the voice of iron. I will not sign your paper. I will not give you my home. I will not give you my freedom. Mom, be reasonable, Mark hissed, his face darkening. You are making a mistake. The court will destroy you. I will testify that you are insane. You can try, I said. I placed the pen back on the desk. You can file your petition. Mark, you can drag me into court. You can tell the judge whatever lies you have rehearsed with this cheap lawyer. But you are forgetting one thing. What is that? Mark sneered. I am not the one who is hiding things. I said. I picked up the petition for conservatorship and ripped it in half. The sound of the tearing paper was incredibly satisfying. I ripped it again and again until it was confetti. I let the pieces flutter down onto the Persian rug. You think you are smart, Mark. You think you have covered your tracks with Tyler. You think because the money went to a shell company in Delaware, no one can trace it back to you. Mark went rigid. His eyes darted to Mr. Sterling, then back to me. I do not know what you are talking about. I hired a forensic accountant 3 days ago. I lied. Well, it was not a lie that I hired him, but he had not found the link yet. But Mark did not know that. I wanted to see him sweat, and I have a private investigator looking into your consulting business. Mark's face lost its color. He took a step back. You are bluffing, he said. You are a crazy old woman. Maybe, I said, stepping toward him. I was not intimidated anymore. I felt a surge of adrenaline, cold and exhilarating. But if you file that petition on Monday, Mark, Soyu Jinghao Ling, 2# is greater than if you tried to take my freedom. Soyu Jinghao Ling, 2# is greater than I will unleash hell. I will spend every penny of Robert's estate to expose you. I will audit you. I will investigate you. I will make it my full-time job to destroy you. Get out of my house, I said. Mark stared at me. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Not guilt. Fear. He realized he had miscalculated. He had cornered a wolf, thinking it was a sheep. This is not over. Autumn. Mark spat. You are going to regret this. You are going to die alone in this house. Get out, I screamed. The sound tore through my throat, raw and primal. Mark turned and stormed out of the study. Mr. Sterling grabbed his briefcase, looking flustered, and scrambled after him. I stood alone in the study. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. My hands were shaking, but not from grief, from rage. I walked to the desk and picked up the phone. I dialed the number for Mr. Vance, my private investigator. It was Sunday. I did not care. "Ence," I said when he answered. "Mrs. Reynolds? It is Sunday. I am at a barbecue. I do not care about your barbecue." I said, "I want you to work faster. I want you to find Tyler. I do not care where he is. I do not care how much it costs. Find my grandson. He is the key." "What happened?" Vance asked. "The war just started," I said, "and I need a witness." I hung up the phone. I walked to the window and watched Mark's car peeling out of the driveway, spraying gravel. Jessica was in the passenger seat, looking back at the house with a confused expression. I placed my hand on the cold glass. Inner monologue. You want to call me crazy, Mark? You want to say I am incompetent? Fine. I will show you exactly what a crazy, incompetent old woman can do. You took my money. You took my grandson. You took my husband. But you made a fatal error. You left me alive. I turned away from the window. The wake was still going on outside. I had to go back out there. I had to shake hands. I had to eat sandwiches. I had to pretend. But now, I had a mission. I walked to the mirror hanging on the wall. I lifted my veil and looked at myself. My eyes were red-rimmed, my skin pale. But there was something new in my expression, a hardness, a jagged edge. I fixed my hair. I lowered the veil. I opened the study doors and walked back into the funeral reception. I am ready, I whispered to the ghosts in the room. I am ready for the fight. Gossip in a wealthy town spreads faster than a brush fire, and it is twice as destructive. By Monday morning, 3 days after the funeral, I had become the villain in my own life story. Mark had not wasted a single second. He had filed the petition for conservatorship at the county courthouse first thing in the morning. And somehow, the local gossip blog, Greenwich Whispers, had obtained a copy by lunch. The headline was brutal. Local matriarch struggles with dementia. Family seeks control after grandson vanishes with $500,000. I did not leave the house, but the world found ways to reach me. My phone rang incessantly, not with condolences, but with concerned inquiries. The chairwoman of the Botanical Garden Committee called to suggest that I take a sabbatical from the board to focus on my health. The pastor at St. Mary's sent an email offering spiritual counseling for confusion and elder distress. They did not see a grieving widow fighting for her dignity. They saw what Mark wanted them to see, a senile old woman who had lost her mind and her money, a liability that needed to be managed by the capable, long-suffering son-in-law. I sat in the kitchen, drinking cold coffee, watching the mailman hesitate before shoving envelopes into my mailbox. Even he looked at the house differently now. It was no longer a pillar of the community. It was a crumbling ruin. My isolation was absolute. Mark had effectively quarantined me from society without ever changing the locks. Then, the burner phone rang. I had bought a prepaid phone at a pharmacy 2 towns over, paying in cash, just as Mr. Vance had instructed. He said it was paranoid. I said it was necessary. I picked it up. "Mrs. Reynolds?" Vance's voice was gravelly, accompanied by the sound of wind and traffic. "Do you have him?" I asked. My hand gripped the counter edge. "I have him," Vance said. "He is not in Europe. He is not in a penthouse in Manhattan. He is in New Jersey, a motel off the turnpike near Newark, the Galaxy Inn, room 112. Is he Soiting Ling? 2 hashes greater than is he alive? He is breathing," Vance said dryly. "But he looks like hell. He has been selling off his designer clothes to pay for the room. I do not think he has eaten a real meal in a week. Do you want me to bring him to you?" "No," I said, grabbing my car keys. "If you bring him here, Mark will see. I am coming to you. Keep him there. Vance, do not let him run. He is not running anywhere. Ma'am, he is too scared to step outside." I drove my Mercedes out of the garage. I took the back roads, avoiding the main avenue where Mark's spies might be watching. The drive to Newark took an hour. The scenery shifted from manicured lawns and stone walls to industrial warehouses, chain-link fences, and gray asphalt cracked by weeds. The Galaxy Inn was a 2-story concrete block painted a peeling shade of yellow. It sat next to a highway overpass, vibrating with the constant roar of trucks. It was the kind of place people went when they wanted to disappear or when they had nowhere left to fall. I pulled my luxury car into the lot, parking between a rusted pickup truck and a dumpster overflowing with trash. I felt conspicuously out of place in my wool coat and leather gloves. I checked the glove compartment. I had a canister of pepper spray Robert had bought me years ago. I slipped it into my pocket. Mr. Vance was waiting by the vending machine, smoking a cigarette. He looked like an ex-cop who had seen too much. Weary, cynical, but effective. He tossed the cigarette butt on the ground and crushed it with his heel. "He is in there," Vance said, nodding toward a door with the number 112 hanging by a single screw. I told him his grandmother was coming. He tried to bolt. I had to convince him that the alternative was the police. "Thank you, Vance," I said. "Wait here." I walked to the door. My heart was hammering against my ribs. This was the boy I had bounced on my knee. This was the boy I had taught to play chess. Xiao Yu Xinghao Ling. 2 hashes greater than I knocked. Go away. A voice croaked from inside. It was terrified. Tyler. I said, open the door. It is Grandma. Silence. Then, the sound of a chain sliding. A lock turning. The door opened a crack. An eye peered out, bloodshot and surrounded by dark circles. Are you alone? He whispered. So Xinghao Ling. Get to. Yes. He opened the door wide enough for me to slip inside, then slammed it shut and locked it immediately. The room smelled of stale beer, cheap pizza, and unwashed bodies. The curtains were drawn tight, blocking out the afternoon sun. On the single, sagging bed lay a pile of clothes. Tyler stood with his back to the wall, shaking. He looked terrible. He had lost 20 pounds. His face was gaunt, covered in patchy stubble. He was wearing a stained t-shirt and sweatpants. He looked nothing like the arrogant young man who had written me that email. He looked like a child who had touched a hot stove and was still screaming on the inside. Tyler, I said softly. He flinched. I do not have the money. Grandma, I do not have it. It is all gone. You can send me to jail. I do not care. Just do not tell Dad I lost it. Please. He will kill me. I froze. What do you mean? Do not tell Dad? Mark told us you lost it. He told us you gambled it away on crypto futures and margin calls. Tyler looked at me, confused. What? No, I did not gamble anything. I invested it, like he told me. Sit down, Tyler, I commanded, pointing to the bed. He sat, wringing his hands. Tell me exactly what happened. I said, from the beginning, no lies. If you lie to me, I walk out that door and I leave you here to rot. If you tell me the truth, I can help you. Tyler took a deep breath. A tear leaked out of his eye and tracked through the grime on his cheek. It started on my birthday, he began, his voice trembling. Dad gave me that book. Later that night, he took me for a drive. He told me about the trust. He said you were controlling me. He said you used money to keep people on a leash. He said if I wanted to be a real man, I had to take that capital and multiply it. And the company? I asked. Future Horizon Capital? Dad set it up. Tyler said. He told me it was a special purpose vehicle, a secure investment fund run by his old business partners in Delaware. He said they had an algorithm that guaranteed 200% returns in 6 months. He showed me the charts. Grandma, they looked real. So you transferred the money? I said. He stood over my shoulder while I did it. Tyler whispered. He typed in the routing numbers. He said we had to move fast before you found out and froze the account. He said it was our secret, a father-son empire. And then, so Yu Xinghao Ling, 2 hashes greater than nothing. Tyler said, putting his head in his hands. A week later, I asked him for a login to see the account. He said the system was updating. Then he said there were regulatory holdups. Then, the day I left for Yale, he called me. He was screaming. He said the market crashed. He said the liquidity was gone. He said the partners had vanished. Tyler looked up at me, his eyes wide with fear. He told me it was my fault. He said I signed the papers, so the feds would come after me for fraud. He said if I stayed at Yale, the police would arrest me in the dorms. He told me to run. He said I had to disappear until he could fix it. He wrote that email for me to send to you. He dictated every word. I closed my eyes. It was worse than I thought. Mark had not just stolen the money. He had terrorized his own son into exile to cover his tracks. He had used Tyler's fear of authority to keep him silent. "Did he give you any money to live on?" I asked. "He gave me $500 cash and told me to buy a burner phone." Tyler said, "He said he would wire me more when it was safe, but he never did. I have been texting him for weeks." "Grandma," he just replies, "Not yet," or "Stay hidden." And then yesterday, "Soyuting Jinghodayu." Tyler reached into his pocket and pulled out a cracked smartphone. Yesterday he texted me this. He handed me the phone. I looked at the screen. The message was from Dad. "Stop texting me. The feds are watching my phone. If you contact me or your grandparents again, you go to prison for 10 years. I am the only one protecting you. Stay dead." Rage, hot and white, flooded my veins. It burned away the last remnants of my grief. "He is not protecting you." "Tyler," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "He is robbing you. The money did not vanish. The market did not crash. He stole it. He put it in his own pocket, and he sent you here to hide so you would not figure it out." "No." Tyler shook his head. "Dad would not." "Soyuting 2# is greater than he is my dad. He is a parasite." I said, "Do you have the emails? The routing numbers he gave you?" "Yes." Tyler said, "It is all on my laptop, but the battery died and I lost the charger. We will buy a new charger." I said. I stood up and extended my hand. "Get your things." "Tyler, you are leaving." "I cannot." Tyler panicked. He said, "The police are looking for me." "The police are not looking for you," I said firmly, "but they are about to be looking for your father. You are not a fugitive." "Tyler, you are a witness." Tyler looked at my hand. He looked at the dingy room. He looked at the hopelessness that had been his life for the past month. "He will be so mad," Tyler whispered. "Let him be mad." I said, "I am furious." Tyler slowly reached out and took my hand. His grip was weak, but it was there. I pulled him up. "We are going to fix this." I told him, "But first, we are going to get you a shower and a steak dinner, and then you are going to tell this story to a lawyer." I walked him out of the motel room. Mr. Vance was waiting by the car. He raised an eyebrow when he saw Tyler. "Got him?" Vance asked. "I got him," I said. "And Vance, you just earned your double fee." As we drove away from the Galaxy Inn, back toward the world of manicured lawns and hidden monsters, I looked at Tyler in the rearview mirror. He was asleep within 5 minutes, exhausted by fear. I thought about the petition Mark had filed. I thought about the rumors in town. I thought about the dementia diagnosis he was fabricating. Let them talk. Let Mark think he has won the public opinion war. Because while he was busy playing the victim on Facebook, I had just secured the nuclear weapon that would blow his entire narrative to dust. I was not just bringing Tyler home. I was bringing the truth home. And the truth was going to be expensive. The Stamford Superior Court was a building designed to intimidate. Its high ceilings, mahogany benches, and echoing marble hallways were meant to remind you that you were small and the law was a giant. On Monday morning, the courtroom assigned to the probate hearing was packed. Mark had done his work well. He had ensured that the tragedy of the Reynolds family was public knowledge. Half the town seemed to be there, sitting in the gallery, eager to watch the final collapse of a dynasty. I sat at the defendant's table next to Mr. Vance and a high-powered litigator named Sarah Jenkins, whom I had hired over the weekend. I wore a navy blue suit, pearls, and my reading glasses. I did not look like a woman descending into madness. I looked like a woman preparing to preside over a board meeting. Across the aisle, Mark sat with Mr. Sterling. Mark looked impeccable in a charcoal suit, his face a mask of sorrowful duty. Jessica sat behind him, clutching a tissue, occasionally dabbing at dry eyes. They were the picture of a concerned family forced to take drastic measures to protect their elderly matriarch. Inner monologue. Look at him. He is confident. He thinks Tyler is still shivering in a motel room in New Jersey. He thinks I am here to beg for my freedom. He has no idea that the floor is about to drop out from under him. Enjoy your moment. Mark, it is the last time you will ever feel safe. The bailiff announced the arrival of Judge Hawthorne. We all stood. The judge was a stern woman in her 60s with a reputation for zero tolerance for family drama. She sat down, adjusted her robes, and looked over her glasses at us. We are here to hear the petition for emergency conservatorship over the person and estate of Autumn Reynolds. Judge Hawthorne said, Mr. Sterling, you may proceed. Mr. Sterling stood up, buttoning his jacket. He walked to the center of the room, his voice dripping with faux empathy. Your Honor, this is not a petition we file lightly. Mr. Mark Reynolds loves his mother-in-law deeply, but recent events have made it clear that Mrs. Reynolds is no longer capable of managing her own affairs or ensuring her own safety. He began to list the evidence: the missing $500,000, the erratic behavior, the isolation, and then he played his ace. Most disturbingly, Your Honor, Sterling said, lowering his voice, is the matter of her late husband's death. According to witness testimony from Mr. Reynolds, Mrs. Reynolds was unable to locate life-saving medication during her husband's heart attack due to a state of panic and confusion. This cognitive decline had fatal consequences. We are simply asking the court to prevent further tragedy. A gasp went through the gallery. I felt the eyes of my neighbors boring into my back. They were judging me. They were whispering, "She let him die." I gripped the edge of the table. My knuckles were white. Mr. Reynolds is willing to take on the burden of managing the estate. Sterling concluded, he is doing this out of love. Thank you, Mr. Sterling, the judge said. She turned to my table. Miss Jenkins, does your client wish to respond? Sarah Jenkins stood up. She was young, sharp, and had a smile that could cut glass. We do. Your Honor, Sarah said. We move to dismiss this petition with prejudice, and we would like to present evidence that this petition is not an act of love, but the final step in a systematic scheme of fraud, elder abuse, and extortion. The judge raised an eyebrow. Those are serious accusations. Counselor, we have serious proof, Sarah said. I would like to call our first and only witness, Mr. Tyler Reynolds. The silence that fell over the courtroom was absolute. Mark's head snapped toward the double doors at the back of the room. His face went gray. His mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. Jessica stopped dabbing her eyes and went rigid. The doors opened. Tyler walked in. He was clean-shaven, wearing a suit I had bought him yesterday. He looked thin, and he was trembling slightly, but his chin was up. He walked down the aisle, past the rows of whispering spectators, past his father. Mark stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Tyler? Mark stammered. Son, you are... Saoyudzing Haling. 2 hash is greater than you are, okay? Sit down, Mr. Reynolds. The judge barked. Tyler took the stand. He placed his hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. He sat down and looked straight at me. I gave him a small nod. Be brave, Mr. Reynolds, Sarah asked. Can you tell the court where you have been for the past month? I was hiding in a motel in Newark, New Jersey, Tyler said. His voice was quiet but clear, because my father told me if I came home, I would be arrested. Objection, Sterling shouted. Hearsay. This boy is unstable. Overruled, the judge said, leaning forward. Continue. Why did your father say you would be arrested? Sarah asked. Because of the money, Tyler said. The trust fund. My grandmother did not lose it. I did not steal it. My father made me transfer it to a shell company he controls called Future Horizon Capital. Lies, Mark screamed. He was no longer the grieving son-in-law. His face was twisted in red fury. He is lying. He is a drug addict. He spent the money, and now he is blaming me. Mr. Reynolds, one more outburst and I will hold you in contempt, the judge warned. I have proof, Tyler said. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a flash drive. My laptop, and the emails, and the recording. Sarah took the flash drive and handed it to the bailiff. Your Honor, we would like to play an audio file labeled September 4th. It was recorded on Tyler's phone during a conversation in Mr. Reynolds' car. The bailiff plugged the drive into the court system. A moment later, Mark's voice filled the room. It was loud, arrogant, and unmistakably him. Audio Mark, listen to me. You little idiot. The money is gone. I moved it offshore. If you tell your grandmother, I will tell the cops you embezzled it. Who are they going to believe? The successful businessman or the college dropout? You sign those papers. Tyler, you sign them and you disappear. Or so help me God. I will destroy you. The recording ended with a click. The courtroom was dead silent. You could hear the hum of the air conditioning. Mark was standing again. He was breathing heavily, his eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal. He looked at the judge, then at the gallery, then at me. He saw no sympathy. He saw only disgust. This is a setup, Mark hissed. That recording is doctored. She put him up to this. She is a witch. She has always hated me. Mr. Reynolds, the judge said, her voice like ice. Sit down. Now. No, Mark shouted. He pointed a shaking finger at me. You think you have won? You think you can humiliate me? I carried this family. I tolerated your arrogance for years. You owe me that money. You owe me for putting up with your daughter. The mask had fallen completely. The loving father was gone. In his place was a narcissist in the midst of a total collapse. I order the bailiffs to restrain Mr. Reynolds, the judge said calmly. 2 officers moved toward him. Do not touch me. Mark swung his arm, hitting one of the bailiffs. It was a weak, desperate flail, but it was assault. The officers tackled him. Mark hit the table, knocking over a pitcher of water. He was screaming profanities, cursing me, cursing Tyler, cursing Robert. I am the victim here, Mark shrieked as they handcuffed him. I am the victim. Jessica sat frozen in her chair, staring straight ahead, looking like she wanted to dissolve into the floor. Petition denied, Judge Hawthorne said, banging her gavel. And I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office immediately. I want an investigation into fraud, embezzlement, and elder abuse. Take him away. They dragged Mark out of the courtroom. His screams echoed down the hallway long after the doors swung shut. Inner monologue. It is over. The dragon is slain. But there is no parade. There is no confetti. I looked at Tyler. He was still on the witness stand, crying silently. He looked shattered. He had just sent his own father to prison. I looked at the gallery. The townspeople were staring at me with a mixture of awe and fear. They would never whisper about me again, but they would never invite me to tea again. Either. I was too dangerous. The courtroom emptied slowly. Sarah Jenkins packed up her briefcase. "We did it. Autumn," she said. "We got him." "Yes," I said. "We got him." I walked over to Tyler. He stood up and looked at me, unsure if he should hug me. I pulled him into my arms. He felt thin and fragile. "I am sorry, Grandma." He sobbed into my shoulder. "I am so sorry." "It is okay," I whispered, stroking his hair. "It is over now." But as I held him, I looked over his shoulder at the empty seat where Mark had been. The victory tasted like ash. I had saved my money. I had saved my reputation. I had saved my grandson from a life on the run. But Robert was still dead, and the family he had loved so much was reduced to wreckage. Mark was going to prison. Jessica would likely flee with the twins, poisoning them against us forever. Chloe would grow up knowing her grandmother put her father behind bars. This was the aftermath. The adrenaline of the battle was fading, leaving behind a vast, cold emptiness. We walked out of the courthouse into the bright, blinding sunlight. Reporters were waiting at the bottom of the steps. Microphones thrust forward like spears. "Mrs. Reynolds, Mrs. Reynolds, how do you feel? Is it true your son-in-law stole $500,000? What do you have to say to your family?" I stopped on the top step. I adjusted my sunglasses. I looked at the cameras, then at Tyler standing beside me. Head bowed. "No comment," I said. I took Tyler's arm and led him to the car. We got in and closed the doors, shutting out the noise of the world. "Where are we going?" Tyler asked, wiping his eyes. "Home," I said, but as the car pulled away, I wondered if that word meant anything anymore. A house is just wood and stone. A home is the people inside it. And looking at the empty seat next to me, where Robert used to sit, I realized I was returning to a museum, not a home. Mark was gone, but he had taken the warmth with him. The snow outside my window at the Oaks has turned to gray slush. It is the ugliest part of winter, the time when the pristine white cover melts away to reveal the dead grass and mud underneath. It has been 2 years since the gavel fell in that courtroom. 2 years since I sat on the witness stand and watched the bailiffs drag my son-in-law away in handcuffs. I won. That is what Sarah Jenkins told me in the hallway afterward. She hugged me and told me it was a total victory. We had recovered the remaining funds. We had put a predator behind bars. We had secured the estate. But sitting here now, in this expensive wheelchair, listening to the hum of the oxygen machine down the hall, I have to ask myself what victory actually looks like. Mark is currently serving a 12-year sentence in a federal penitentiary in upstate New York. The district attorney added charges of attempted extortion and insurance fraud to the pile. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that he works in the prison laundry. The man who wanted to be a venture capitalist is now folding sheets for 12 cents an hour. Jessica filed for divorce exactly 48 hours after the verdict. She claimed she was a victim of his manipulation too. She took the twins, Liam and Sophia, and moved to Arizona to live with her sister. I send them checks on their birthdays, $500 each. They never cash them. I think Jessica burns them. It is her way of keeping her dignity. Or perhaps her way of protecting them from the toxic Reynolds money. And then there is Tyler. My grandson did not go back to Yale. He did not go back to any college. The shame of what happened, the public humiliation of testifying against his own father, broke something inside him that no amount of tuition could fix. He lives in Seattle now. He works for a landscaping company. He spends his days cutting grass and trimming hedges, doing hard, physical labor that leaves him too exhausted to think. He visits me once a year. He sits in the chair where you are sitting now, twisting his cap in his hands. We talk about the weather. We talk about the Seahawks. We never talk about Mark. We never talk about the money. The trust fund was restored, but Tyler refuses to touch it. He calls it blood money. He says he wants to earn his own way, dollar by dollar. I respect him for it, but it breaks my heart to see his rough hands and the sadness that never leaves his eyes. He is 20 years old, going on 50, and Chloe, my sweet granddaughter Chloe, she never forgave me. To her, I am not the woman who saved the family. I am the monster who put her daddy in a cage. She is 16 now. She lives with her mother's cousin in Vermont. Mark writes her letters from prison, poisoning her mind with stories of how I framed him. I have not heard her voice in 700 days. Inner monologue. This is the price. This is the bill that comes due at the end. I wanted to control everything. I wanted to use my money to build a wall around my family, to keep them safe from the world and from each other. But walls do not just keep people out, they keep people in. My secrecy about the trust fund created the shadow where Mark could hide. My arrogance made me think I could outsmart a con man without consequences. I thought I was the hero of this story, but look at me. I am just the survivor, and survivors are often the loneliest people on earth. The door to my room opens. It is the night nurse, a kind woman named Brenda. Time for your medication. Mrs. Reynolds, she says cheerfully, and then lights out. Just a moment. Brenda, I say. I pick up the picture frame on my bedside table. It is an old photograph, taken 5 years ago at Christmas. Robert is there, looking healthy and proud. Tyler is smiling, wearing a goofy Santa hat. Chloe is hugging me. Even Mark looks decent, his hand resting on Jessica's shoulder. We look like a family. We look happy. It was all a lie. Of course, the rot was already there, festering beneath the smiles. But it was a beautiful lie, and sometimes, in the dark of the night, I wish I could go back to it. I wish I could buy that lie back, but I cannot. I am the woman with millions in the bank and no one to leave it to. I am the woman who won the war and inherited a graveyard. I place the photo face down on the table. I am ready. I tell the nurse. She hands me the pill and a cup of water. I swallow it. It tastes bitter, like old pennies. Good night, Mrs. Reynolds, she says, turning off the lamp. Good night. I whisper to the darkness. The room goes black. Outside, the wind rattles the window pane, searching for a way in. I pull the blanket up to my chin and close my eyes, waiting for sleep, waiting for silence, waiting for the day I can finally see Robert again and ask him if I did the right thing. But the silence does not answer. It never does.